Grieving parents Matthew and Michelle Marr are demanding answers after their 9-year-old son Hunter died on Monday, just 19 hours after he was sent home from the Marr Children's Hospital. Hunter's father, Matthew Marr, joins us now. Matthew, first of all, I want to say how very sorry we are for your loss. I cannot even imagine how you're feeling at the moment, the grief that your family is going through. So we do appreciate your time this morning. Can you first of all take us through what actually happened with Hunter when he got sick in the first place and when you took him to the Children's Hospital?
Hunter last Monday had developed a bit of a cough, and by Thursday some really bad breathing difficulties. Now, he'd had an episode similar to this about 2.5 years ago, and I knew the signs pretty early, so Thursday late afternoon, we called an ambulance for him and they took him to the Marr. I requested the Marr because they had records. They dealt with him 2.5 years ago. So we get to emergency and they stabilise him, and then they admit him overnight, and then they kept him. As a matter of fact, they wanted to keep him for a few days, which was great, as far as I was concerned, was better, because the last time, 2.5 years ago, he had a Sunday attack, and then by the Wednesday, 3 or 4 days later, he almost died. So I understood what was going on here. So we get to the Marr this time, where he's admitted. He's still having trouble while he's admitted, and I had him on the 8th floor. Saturday, they moved him from the private section where he's admitted as a public patient down to the 7th floor. We still hadn't seen a doctor in the morning, as a matter of fact, and I was asking for a doctor to see him because he was still not really well. And the nurse had to ring down or page the doctors because they forgot about him, basically, on the Saturday. So we get down to the 7th floor. I'd been there pretty much every night. Michelle had been there during the day with him. So I took off, and before I left, I was like, well, we've got private insurance. Let's get him back up to the 8th floor. Let's get him some peace and quiet in his own room. So I guess it was late Saturday. They got him back up to the private ward. By the time I got back there, he was okay. He's been eating and stuff, but he's still not himself, you know. I stayed that night, and then overnight, like when I'd stayed the other nights, I hadn't had to ring a bell for a nurse at all. Saturday night, I rang the bell, I reckon it was about 5 times. Sunday morning comes, Michelle comes from home, and he's had a coughing fit for like 2.5 hours, and they're talking about discharging him, and I hadn't even seen a doctor that morning, and I was angry, and I said, look, you know, to the nurses, I said, I want to see a doctor, get a doctor here. We're pushing the bell. They didn't come exactly on time. I don't know if they were busy or not or whatever. Anyway, the paediatrician came, reassured us that everything was okay, and I said to her, look, from past history, I need him to stay here. He's still not well. He can't breathe. He's had this coughing fit for 2.5 hours, and all they gave him was Ventolin.
So he was still...
I left...
Sorry, keep going.
I was saying, I left. Michelle was there. About 2 hours after I left, I get a call from Michelle saying they've discharged him.
So he was...
I couldn't believe it.
He's still coughing violently at the point that Hunter was discharged from hospital. Is that what was happening?
Yeah, they were more worried about whether he could go 2 or 3 hours without a Ventolin than about the coughing and about all the other stuff that was happening to him. It was like, let's get him to 2 or 3 hours without a Ventolin so that we can discharge him based on that, rather than let's investigate what's going on. You know what I mean?
Did the
We just discharged... Sorry.
So, no, you go. Sorry, Matthew, you go ahead.
He's discharged. We get him home. We go to bed in the morning. He slept with Michelle the last night, so Michelle could give him the Ventolin. And it was every 2 hours. He was really struggling. Michelle called me early in the morning, and I got in there, and his lips were blue. His lips were blue. And I went to ring the ambulance, and I had no sooner than literally dialed 000, and Michelle screamed. And I got back in the room. I'm sorry. He collapsed. He collapsed. I picked him up, I put him on the floor, put him in the recovery position, and all this. It was like somebody turned on a tap and all this mucus and fluid come out of his mouth. The ambulance people were helping us with the CPR. We performed CPR, and it just went on, and we were doing the CPR, and I was yelling for the ambulance. It took forever. Anyway, they came. They worked on him for a long time. They told us that at some point they're going to have to stop, but they transported him to Logan Hospital. And they did pretty much the same thing, and then they just stopped.
Has the Marr Children's Hospital at this point offered you any explanation?
I was pretty angry on the Tuesday. I had this built-up anger, and I went up there, and I screamed. I was screaming at him. You killed my child, and all they could tell me was that they're going to do an investigation, and they said that they failed. They failed my boy. I don't understand how they can do an investigation on themselves, though. I don't understand that. I would have thought that to have a proper investigation, you would need somebody that's totally independent of the whole procedure.
Okay, Matthew. We'll stay on the story, and we really appreciate you talking to us this morning. We are so incredibly sorry for your loss, and we'll stay on this story throughout the course of the day. Thank you very much for talking to us, Matthew.
Thanks for your time.
It is just heartbreaking, isn't it?